Hey, everybody. We have a special presentation for you next. We have a legendary business author that has spoken to the School of Entrepreneurship class, and that is Tom Peters. And I'm extremely honored that Tom was able to come by. Tom is a friend of mine now, and I really picked up Tom's message. His message at an early time in my life and my career, when I was an impressionable young man trying to make sense of the world, really resonated with me. So he would speak to corporate audiences, right? And he was like, let's cut the bureaucracy, let's cut out the BS, let's cut out the layers of management, right? And all the titles and everything, and let's just focus on the customer. How about that? All right. And the message resonated with me because I didn't have a college education. I don't have a college education. Tom Peters was like a rebel, right? He was calling corporate America out on their bureaucracy that they had built and developed, right? And he was saying, look, let's just focus on the customer with new ideas and R&D. Let's quit prototyping and, let's go try it out, all right? On the sidewalk, on the front line, right? Let's push power down to the people on the front line, right? Does this sound familiar, right? To foremen who are running their own jobs, right? To management and salespeople. Let's not make our business complicated, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, in our business, there's no room for bureaucracy. There's no room to pay layers of managers who do little but tell other managers what to manage, and we need people doing stuff. That's what we need, like selling jobs and installing jobs, right? That's the only thing people pay us for, is to install the jobs. They don't pay us for marketing. They don't pay us for sales. They don't pay us for, managers and people in the office and all this. He actually wrote about me and our company in 3 of his books, Little Big Things and his very latest book. There's 3 books that he spends several pages talking about our company. So he appreciated how we ran our organization. So I wanted to do a podcast with him. And so he came here to do a podcast. Well, it just so happened that the very next day, we were having a School of Entrepreneurship training. And so I asked Tom, would you speak to our group? And he was gracious enough to do that. And he speaks to, he gets paid $100,000 for speeches to, speaking to corporate audiences for a day. But he was here right at the School of Entrepreneurship. And let's take a look at what he had to say. Welcome to a very special evening that we have here. I'm very honored that Tom Peters is here with us. And, in 1982, 2 McKinsey consultants, Bob Waterman and Tom Peters, wrote a book called In Search of Excellence. And that book has gone on to become one of the top quoted business books of all time, and even been called the greatest business book of all time, In Search of Excellence. And in 1982, I graduated high school when that book came out. And so the interesting thing was I gravitated toward audio learning at a very early age, and I didn't go to college. And so, I wanted to see, fill the void, like, what am I missing here? And so I would listen to these authors, and it was Earl Nightingale and Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and Tom Peters, okay? And Tom was the author that I had listened to that talked about really corporate America. And in Search of Excellence, he was talking about a lot of the really outdated ways of thinking that corporate America has. And I really loved his style of calling BS BS, He pulled no punches. And so, but for me, I didn't have this corporate pedigree where, if I was in a member of corporate America, I might think, well, he's correcting me, he's calling me on my stuff. I had no such, baggage. But to me, he spoke to me like I was learning how to do it right in the first place, right? And so it really meant a lot to me. Also kind of validated, hey, I didn't go to college. And after listening to Tom Peters, I'm thinking, boy, I'm glad I didn't, because those guys don't know much anyway. So, Anyway, let's give me very warm welcome to the Red Bull of management thinkers, Tom Peters.
It is a fabulous pleasure to be here with you. As probably most of you you may know, because of pictures around, that I wrote a book that was released just a couple of weeks ago. What you may not know is A, I think this will be the last book I write, and B, it's dedicated to about 5 people. My wife, naturally, my first Navy commanding officer. I was a Navy CB in Vietnam for a couple of years, and Larry. There are at least a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is I think what you have done is absolutely amazing on so many dimensions, including now I was looking at the outline of the college. For God's sakes, Larry, you founded a college. Who the hell needs to go to a college? And I looked at this list, and yeah, I will trade you my fancy, absurdly expensive Stanford MBA for an opportunity to go through this program, and I'm not kidding about that at all. But there's another thing. I lived in Silicon Valley for 30 years, from 1970 to 2000, and I am so sick and tired of unicorns that I could literally throw up the piece of cheese that I recently chewed on. And what I love about this organization is that you're doing it in an area where other people would say, this is not sexy, you can't do anything magnificent in an arena like this. For God's sakes, what's this basement-y thing? Well, what this basement-y thing is a phenomenally successful, phenomenally profitable organization. You know, there were 2 people. Larry is one of them, and the other person is a guy by the name of Jim Penman. Jim was getting a PhD in Melbourne, and like all PhD students, he didn't have 2 cents to rub together. He didn't have 1 cent to rub together, if you can rub 1 cent together. And so he started cutting lawns. And cutting lawns has now become Jim's group in the UK, Canada, the United States, and New Zealand. There are 6,000 franchises, and the 6,000 franchises, and I think this is their motto, we love to do things that other people hate to do. They have got dog walking services, they have got grass cutting services, they have got appliance fix, every service known to humankind. But again, I love it for the same reason. It doesn't have to be those bloody Silicon Valley people with their bloody PhDs in computer science. I mean, you look around, and Larry gave me a tour. He's using technology as well as any company that's out there in Silicon Valley. But you know, this is what it's about. It's about real people doing real work. I mean, you know, I can't say I came directly from a construction family, but my grandfather was a German engineer who came over to the United States in 1873. And some of you who may have been to Annapolis, Maryland, and seen the Naval Academy, there is a building called Bancroft Hall, which in theory is the biggest dormitory under one roof in the world. I think 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 midshipmen in fact, lived there. Well, my grandfather, Jacob Ebert Peters, built Bancroft Hall. And so my father went and became an accountant, and we skipped a generation. And then when I went to school, the Navy was kind enough to pay for it. I got a civil engineering degree. Lyndon Johnson was kind enough to start a war in Asia. And the next thing I knew, I was in Da Nang, Vietnam. And as Larry and I will talk about, with incredibly good technical training and pathetic people skills. And, you know, here as a kid, I used to laugh and say I could redesign the Verzano Narrows Bridge with both hands tied behind my back and a blindfold on. But suddenly, in the middle of the night in Da Nang, Vietnam, a Navy ensign lands with shockingly good training, and I am responsible for the lives, literally, of a dozen human beings in a detachment that I was supposedly in charge of. And that's when my real education began. But it was an education that, led to things like In Search of Excellence, because, my bias is very, very simple. It's all about the people. Organizations are people serving people, and leaders are people serving people who serve leaders. It's a people game, period. I've been doing all these interviews, and people say, well, boy, you're really stuck on this people thing. I said, what the hell else is there? And it is the game. And when people care, when people are engaged, first of all, it's an amazing contribution to the community. It's an extraordinary thing to do for your clients and customers. They can feel the engagement of a group of people who are working in their place, as easy as pie. And so, yeah, it's about the people. It's about well-trained people. It's about hiring people who care, and 1,000 things like that. Larry could have easily written my books. Now, there's no issue about it. And so I'm just so thrilled to be here. I can't see straight. And I'm so thrilled to have Larry be the person who, with a few others, to whom the book is dedicated to. And if I rewrote it today, I would do the same thing. And, this is cool, dude.
Well, what do you say?
It is cool. People say you can't do it. Basements can, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. I will trade any AI organization in the world for you guys.
Well, you say in your book, you become who you hang out with. If you hang out with cool, you become cool.
Right.
So
hey, there it is.
You're becoming cooler tonight.
Hey. I know the basement man. It doesn't get any better than that.